Facelifts for Taylormade 790s, making spinners for vokeys. Let's see how we're going to do that. Welcome back to my golf shop here. Jim McCleary, and 6-time top 100 best club fitter with Golf Digest and the last International Club Maker of the Year. We have boxes of bills, number 11, and we have a set of Taylormade P790s. And we have a set of 3 vokeys. Gentleman came to me for a fitting, and he's a taller guy. And we found out that the 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch over 790s, all right, the 790s, here we go, weren't long enough. We need to be 1 inch over. And that's what we're going to do. So we're going to reshaft these. And these were a little bit light for him and a little bit too stiff for him. So the transmission's got to go. We got to put a new transmission in his clubs. So what do we do when we go to do this? Well, first we got to take stock in what we're working with. All right, P790 is a hollow body club, and you see that it has the slot in it. Now the slot is good from the upper irons to the 7 iron, and then at the 8 iron, the line disappears and it becomes a whole club again. All right, now the hollow body iron has been a very, very popular choice this year. It's the best of both worlds. It gives you that blade look. Everybody likes the blade. It also gives you the cavity back performance, meaning more forgiveness. Okay. Sorry, I've got a cold, and breathing is just a tragedy today. And so what we found out was that he liked the Modus. The Modus worked for him well. We were in a player's distance category. He had them, so a reshaft was the way to go. And that's what we're doing. The other part is making a spinner my way, making a spinner my way for all 3 of the wedges. So stay tuned for that one. So how do we get to this part, right? How do we get started? How do we do it? Well, number 1, we got to take inventory of what we have. We got to see what kind of ferrule we're using, right? To see, maybe give it try and give it as much of an original OEM look if we want to, right? Unless somebody wants it to be custom, right? And you can put the BB&Fs in there, or just plain old colored ones if you want. You can do that, making sure that we have all the parts necessary to go do this. Make sure we have all the shafts, make sure we have all the ferrules, make sure we have all the grips, make sure we have all the glue, all these different things that come into play, and all the tools, right? When we apply heat, do we have enough of the fuel? That kind of stuff. All those come into play, right? Is it easy enough to reshaft a club? Yeah, you've seen me do it dozens of times. What you don't see is a lot of the planning that goes into it in order to make this thing go. That's the important part here, right? So planning your job is priority 1 in being successful in doing these builds. Number 1, I've always been interested, these IO shafts. So this is a Project X, right? It's a Project X IO shaft. And it's got that kind of it's got that graphite feel, but the steel look, or steel look and a graphite feel, I don't know. But I'm always, I've pulled them out once, and for life of me, I can't remember what it is. So we're going to pull this guy and see what they look like, so we can further refine our dismantling process. Now, before we get started, we have to get a build sheet going. Why do I do a build sheet? Well, it helps me track the things that I'm looking for instead of hunting it through other pieces of paper. This is my governing document that tells me what I've got to do, how I've got to do it, and when I've got to do it. So as you're seeing, I put all the lengths that I need, and then all the line angles that I know I'm going to go to. I don't have the lofts here, but I will spec them when it gets time for that. And then all the shaft weights and all the grip weights and all the ferrules I intend to use, and that helps me get started. And then a lot of these are after the fact type stuff, like total weights and swing weights and that kind of stuff. So that's what you're seeing. That's what we get to do when we do that. And it takes some measuring. I wanted to see what these things felt like, right? Or what they look like when we took them off, and give them a comparison when we put them back. So that's there. So we've got that taken care of. Now, what we got to do is we got to take a couple apart just to see what these things are about, and then we'll know how to move forward from there. So let's go to the bench. All right, so we got the 5-iron, and we can see this is a painted surface. So if you're really going to want to grind on that, you run the real risk of removing it, right? And we don't want to make it shiny like that because we want that contrast. So maybe just a light touch up here, so we don't go over top of the finished coating on that. The face here looks pretty good, so now we just have to remove this. So a little bit of hit with the butane torch. A little hit with the butane torch. The idea here is to get it soft. And then so we don't destroy the shaft, I tend to push down and pull back. And you can tell that I haven't got it all the way there yet. So another round. Larger ferrules tend to take a little more time. There we go. And just pull her back. All right. There we go. We got to let go. Now the whole idea here is not to scratch it where it would be seen for the ferrule, because in case the owner wants to sell them or something along that lines. All right, let's get this thing hot. There we go. So now we're going to clean this out, and then we're going to take a look at the shaft. All right, another thing, when we get ready to go, we actually got to know what we're working with, so we want to make sure, you know, people will assume 790, it's a taper tip. Well, let's find out. There's some wobble in there. Maybe it is. And it is. So we got a taper tip shaft, so that's in it. Now we know about that. Now let's talk about this shaft. Alrighty, so it is a steel shaft, and how do we know? Well, if we look at the end here, see how it's smaller? That's the indicative of a steel shaft, and we're seeing a lot of coarseness right here. So what we have is a steel shaft with a bit of a painted surface on the outside. So we're going to try and take these apart without the machine going forward. Aha, there we go. So now we know we can do that. That's going to speed up the process. So let's get all these done. the clubs came apart pretty easily, and that's pretty stereotypical of the Taylormade slash Titleist type stuff. You know, they have that glue that just kind of gives easier than most. Okay. Got them all cleaned out. We got all the ferrules picked out that we want to use. And we have the shafts, and now I'm going to do the spine and flow with them. And we're going to do the same thing with the shafts that we're going to do for making a spinner. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to kind of do a dry fit on these, and then we'll go back to the bench and we'll talk about making a spinner. So give me about 10 minutes. All right, I got everything spine and flowed, ready for assembly. I just got to braid the tips, and we're ready to go. Now, how do we make a spinner shaft? How do we make a spinner for that? All right, so let's talk about what spinners really were. In the day, when Rifle was by itself and it was his own company, and they actually had Brunswick, and they had the Precision FM, right? Stuff like this. This is old. And what this was a calculator, basically a circular slide rule of sorts, that you would use to calculate tip trimming, length, all these, and it actually would go into swing weight in order to build rifle shafts into certain clubs. And it took in all kinds of data, hosel depth and swing weight and length and flex and all these things. And you would basically stand here and move this stuff around, and it would give you what kind of shaft and how much you would want to tip each one. And that's how that started. Well, in its inception, what they came up with is a spinner wedge shaft. The idea was to create a little bit more height, land it a little softer with a little bit more spin, hence spinner. All right. How did they accomplish that? Well, you had to go through some training in order to do that. And what we did is a little bit later in that, a group called Swing Science was able to give a lot of the training. So I took the Advanced Rifle Center and I got me a new one. And it's the same thing, it's just different color. And what we did is we talked about making spinner shafts and how you do it. Now, what's happened since then? Rifle has been bought by True Temper, and you've seen the rifle shaft is basically non-existent, although it is making a comeback this year in the Callaway product. I don't know how much more than that, but Project X is surviving quite a bit, and it's taken off and it's created a life of its own, but it's under the guise and design of True Temper now, not Rifle. So does that mean that only rifles can be spinner shafts? Not anymore, right? Not anymore. You look at, I was going to go get you a couple, but if you look at some Vokeys, you look at Mizunos, a lot of the other wedge companies, they'll have this big long label on the back and it'll say spinner, right? It'll say spinner. So what they've done is they bought spinner shafts from True Temper to install in their clubs. That's good. I like the spinner shaft. I think it's great. So how do you do it? Now, can you do it like we used to? No, because that product doesn't exist. So you're relegated to kind of a more rough estimate, okay? So here it is. Here's what you got to do. If let's just say you're using a 120S flex shaft, you want to do one of two things. One, you get the 8 iron of the X flex of the very same shaft. Now that's for somebody who doesn't mind them all weighing about the same, right? Because wedge heads are a little bit heavier, so they're going to be heavier by design, but not a lot. Now, if you have somebody that's a little bit more aggressive in their swing, you're going to want to go up a weight class, X flex, and then in an 8 iron. So basically 8 irons, weight flex class higher, put it in without tipping, put it into the wedge, cut it to your normal wedge length, voila, you got a spinner. There it is. Now I know it's out there, but that's basically the way to do it. Now you can go a little higher, and what that's going to do is going to make it a little stiffer when you add more weight, but for the person that's aggressive, they'll probably end up liking that. So that's the fitting aspect / club builder aspect in it in order to make it go. So there it was, right? So I'm going to put these back, and I'm going to go finish building, and then we'll see how they all turned out.
Come on in a little closer. Yeah, my voice is getting ready to go. All right, we're at the end of the spinner shaft. Spinner. What is a spinner? Spinner is basically the next flex up 8-iron shaft that goes into a wedge. I'm using this because I didn't like the ferrule, so I changed it out to something I do like now. And what we did is we also went up a weight class in order for it to get to a particular profile that the golfer would like when using a wedge. Because wedges are finesse shots, right? They're not full swings, they're finesse shots. So you don't need to have a whole lot of, you want to get all the feel you can out of it. And for this particular golfer, a little extra weight is exactly where we needed to go. And that's what we did. All right, so we completed the set, and you're seeing it now. However, what do spinners do? Spinners allow you to hit it slightly higher with a little bit more spin, i.e. spinner. And that's what this accomplishes. Now, is it going to turn you into somebody that spins the ball off the green? No. All right, that's just not going to happen. But it gives maybe a softer profile, maybe a little higher shot, maybe a little bit more spin. Notice I'm saying maybe in front of all these. It's because it's all maybe based on how the spinner was made for you. And again, if you go look in some of the wedges nowadays, they say the word spinner on them because they're making them for us now in wedge shafts. So it's not like it's a secret, okay? However, in this particular instance, I'm really happy for him because the little extra weight got him up into everything we were making was D4, and this ended up in that D5, D6 area, which is just exactly what we need for that little bit more control on the shorter shots, a little more control for this particular golfer. All right, so thank you for watching. If you have any questions, put them in the show notes below, and we'll try and get to them as fast as we possibly can. And as always, let's see your scores. Go low.